Hi everyone, welcome back to icpark. This time I am with a new revision video. So we are revising registration chapter, and in this chapter I will be revising the section number 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 and 27. So this is 7 sections we are going to register, not register, revise. Yeah, register. We are going to register that in our brain. Okay, so here we are going to revise this registration chapter, and not in so much of detail. What you have to do is you just have to plug in your earphone and you just have to go on listening. That's all. Okay, we'll start with section number 22. What is section number 22? Section number 22 is who is liable. Section number 22 subsection 1, who is liable. Who is liable? Mami went to Tripura and Nagaland by spending 10 lakh rupees, and she came back and she did Telanganian upmas, and she made some income to the extent of 20 lakhs, and in other states it is 20 lakhs and 40 lakhs. So what is Mami? Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura and Nagaland. In these 4 cases, in these 4 states, if your turnover is greater than or equal greater than 10 lakh rupees, then you are liable for registration. In case of Telangana, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim, in these 4 cases, in 4 plus 1, 5 states, in all these 5 states, 5 plus 1, 6 states, it is 20 lakhs. Later, in all other states, if your turnover is greater than 20 lakhs, then you have to take registration. If you are exclusive supplier of goods, then your turnover limit is 40 lakhs, which is given in section number 23 subsection 2. And 40 lakhs, you should be the exclusive supplier of goods. And there was one explanation. What is the explanation? If you are supplier of service, which is the interest, that means if you have deposited some amount in the bank and you are getting some interest, that interest is for giving service. That service will not be considered for the purpose of this 40 lakhs. That means for this 40 lakhs, even if you give some deposits to the bank and you are getting some interest, that is nothing but the service, will not be considered as the service. So you still be considered as exclusive supplier of goods. And this 40 lakh rupees ka limit is given in section number 23 subsection 2. Exemption ka cases mein. And you should not be the supplier of ice cream wala goods. If you remember the ice cream, if you are the supplier of ice cream, you are supplier of, next one after ice cream, tobacco, pan masala. If you are the supplier of ash bricks, building bricks, fossil bricks and roofing tiles, roofing and earthen tiles, in these 7 cases, if you are supplier of these goods, then 40 lakhs ka limit is not applicable. You definitely fall back to the 20 lakh rupees ka limit. This is given in section number 22 subsection 1. And one more point, section number 22 subsection 1 says, if you are doing business in more than one state, one amongst them is special category states, which is 10 lakh ka states, in that case, which limit is applicable? 10 lakh rupees ka limit is applicable, provided you are doing taxable supplies from that states. Otherwise, the 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs ka limit, that is applicable. This is given in section number 22 subsection 1. Later we discussed about section number 22 subsection 2. You are already registered under old regime, then you have to get registration when your turnover, it's not turnover. In case you are already registered under old regime, then you are liable to get registration from the appointed date, which is 22/6/2017. Next, if you are transferring your business to someone, then from the date of the transfer is required to get registered. Or you are getting the goods or services from another person who is going to seize his business, then you are required to take the registration from the date of transfer. And section number 22 subsection 4 is about in case of change in the constitution. When the constitution, not constitution of business, change in the constitution of the business, that means in the case of amalgamation, demerger, in that case, from the date of order of the court and on receiving the certificate from the registrar, you have to take the registration. So this is about section number 22. So we did discuss about section number 22. Now section number 23, who is not liable to register. Who is not liable to register? Section number 23 subsection 1 clause A. the exempt supplier. If you are exclusively engaged in the supply of exempt goods and are not required to take the registration. If you are exclusively supplier of exempt goods and services, are not required to take the registration. Section number 23 subsection 1 clause A. Section number 23 subsection 1 clause B is about agriculturist. To the extent of the agriculturist, to the extent of supply of the produce out of the cultivation of land. So I have written it as own land, but it is wrong. To the extent of supply of produce out of the cultivation of the land. It is not required that it should be his own land, not required. Cultivation of the land, his own cultivation from the land, then he will be called as agriculturist. To that extent he is not required to pay any GST. That means he is not required to register. Agriculturist is not required to register. Sir, I am agriculturist plus I am doing some business also, then you are required to register provided your turnover exceeds the specified limit. Next one, section number 23 subsection 2, which talks about various exemption notifications. If you are not required to get registered provided if you are the one amongst the following: exclusive supplier of goods up to 40 lakhs. You remember this? In all the states except Mami and Upmas, Telanganian Upmas. Mami went to Tripura, Mami, Tripura and Nagaland, and Telanganian Upmas. You should not be the supplier in those states, and you are exclusive supplier of goods, then up to 40 lakhs you are not required to take the registration. Second one, interstate supplier of services up to 20 or 10 lakhs. So if you are interstate supplier of services, not goods, services. If you are interstate supplier of services up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs, you are not required to take the registration. Interstate supplier of handicraft goods. Interstate supplier of handicraft goods up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs, again you are not required to take the registration. CTP, that is casual taxable person, in case of handicraft goods up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs, again you are not required to take the registration. Finally, exclusive supplier, the supplier of supplies liable under RCM. That means I am supplying some goods, the goods are liable under RCM, then you are required to take the compulsory registration. I am not required to take the compulsory registration. I don't have to take the registration, because in case of RCM, purchaser will pay under reverse charge. Supplier is not required to take the registration, exempt from taking the registration. Section number 23 subsection 2. Later we discussed about section number 24, compulsory registration. ISRO tank. You remember ISRO tank? First one, I. What is I? Interstate supplier subject to section number 23 subsection 2. See, interstate supplier is required to take compulsory registration provided interstate supplier of service up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs is not required to take the registration. Interstate supplier of handicraft goods up to 20 or 10 lakhs is not required to take the registration. Second one, ISD, input service distributor. Compulsory, he has to take the registration. Separate registration is required. Why? Because to give the ITC to the other branches, he is required to take ISD registration, that is required. Input service distributor must. Next one, supplier. S, supplier under e-commerce. So if I am a supplier who is supplying under e-commerce, then I am required to take the registration. Compulsory, I have to take the registration provided. If I am the supplier of service, then I am not required to take the registration up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs. So why, sir? What is the logic, sir? Because e-commerce operator will do the TCS, tax collected at source. To claim that, I have to take the registration. If I am the supplier of services up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs, I am not required to take the registration. Later, next one is R. ISRO mein R for person liable under RCM. Example, I am purchasing any goods or services which are liable to be paid under RCM, then I am required to take the registration, because RCM mein I have to pay to the government. To pay it to the government, I have to take the registration. E-commerce operator under section 9 subsection 5. That means we have discussed that in section number 9 subsection 5 that the e-commerce operator are liable to pay under RCM. If e-commerce operator is liable to pay under RCM, that means he is required to take the compulsory registration. So e-commerce operator is required to take compulsory registration. E-commerce operator under specially under section number 9 subsection 5. Next one O, ISRO mein O stands for OIDR service provider, providing services to the URP, that is unregistered person. OIDR services provider providing services to the unregistered person has to take compulsory registration. We know what is the reason. Usually OIDAR services are provided by outside India to the person who is in India, then it is nothing but importation of services hua. So if if they go for forward charge mechanism, then the person who is taking the service, no, he has to pay it to the OIDR who is outside India, and it is very difficult to make the person who is outside India to pay tax to the government. That's why FCM is not there. So they went for RCM. So in case of RCM, OIDR service provider is providing services to the unregistered person. So in that case also, RCM, if they make it RCM, if I am the person who is taking OIDAR services, if I am not registered and if it is under RCM, then I have to take compulsory registration. So in this case, government found some confusion. They cannot go for FCM and they cannot go for RCM also. That's why what government did, OIDAR services, if you are giving services to the unregistered person, please take compulsory registration in India. So that's why OIDAR service providers are required to take compulsory registration. The same topic we have discussed in the class many a time. Next one, T, TDS deductor and TCS collector. The one who is required to deduct the TDS or the one who is required to collect the TCS, then he is compulsory required to take the registration. Why? Because to deduct the TDS, he has to have the registration, and the deducted amount he has to put in the GST of the person by whom he has deducted the TDS. So that's why to put it in his GST, registration is compulsory. TCS collector is also required to take the registration because the collected amount has to be deposited in the name of the supplier. For that purpose, TCS collector is required to take the compulsory registration. Continued, agent. In case of agent is required to take compulsory registration when a principal is a taxable person. If principal is taxable person and goods or services are taxable. Goods or services which are supplied by the agent is taxable. If these two conditions are satisfied, then agent is required to take compulsory registration. And the next one is NRTP and CTP. These two guys are required to take compulsory registration. So this is about compulsory registration. And there is last one point, O for other, in such other person as may be the required by the government, they have to take compulsory registration. So this is about section number 24. Later we discussed about section number 25, the procedure under section 25. Section number 25 subsection 1, within 30 days a person who is liable under section 22 and 24, he is required to take the registration, apply for registration within 30 days from the date of becoming liable. And we know that what are the consequences of not applying within 30 days. If you don't apply within 30 days, then you cannot give RTI. What is RTI? Revised tax invoice. It is not available to the person who is applying after 30 days. One. The second one is, there are some rules. Section number 25 subsection 1 there are two provisos. Proviso number 1, that is when in case of SEZ has to take a separate registration. SEZ, they have to take a separate unit in SEZ, they have to take separate registration. And a person who is there in the territorial waters of India. So if you are already in territorial waters of India, then you are required to take a separate registration, and at the same time you will be considered as making supplies from, or you have to take registration in the nearest baseline, that is given in the explanation, nearest baseline or coastal areas. So you have to take registration in the nearest coastal area. And CTP and NRTP, they have to take registration 5 days prior to the date of commencement of their business. This is given in section number 25 subsection 1. Section number 25 subsection 2, by default a single registration will be given to a person who is applying for registration in one state. In one state, by default, he will get one single registration. But if the taxpayer is in the requirement of more than one registration, they can go for more than one registration in a same state. That is given in section number 25 subsection 2. Section number 25 subsection 3 says that if a person is not liable under section 22 subsection under section number 22 or section number 24, even then he can apply for voluntary registration under section 25(3). Section number 25 subsection 4 says that under a same PAN, if a person has multiple registration, for the purpose of GST, these two registration will be considered as deemed distinct person. Section number 25 subsection 5 says that a person who is having two branches or two places of business in different state, in which one state is one business in one state is not registered, in that case, for the purpose of GST, these two will be considered as deemed distinct person. That is given in section number 25(5). Section number 25(6) says that to take the registration, PAN is mandatory. Section number 25(6) says that PAN is mandatory. Section number 25(7) says that PAN not required for NRTP, because NRTP is non-resident in India. It is not required that he should have a PAN in India. For that purpose, any other documents which can be submitted by that person will be considered as sufficient document to take the registration in India. That is given in section number 25 subsection 7. Section number 25 subsection 6A, 6A, 6B, 6C, 6D. It is talking about Aadhaar authentication. Section number 25 subsection 6A says that if you are already registered before the notification of Aadhaar authentication, mandating Aadhaar authentication, if you are already registered, then from the notified date you have to take the Aadhaar authentication. Section number 25 subsection 6B says that an individual on application, he has to go for Aadhaar authentication, which is mandatory. Section number 25 6C says that those who are other than the individual, example partnership firm, trust, association, company, in that cases the authorized person, they have to go for Aadhaar authentication. For example, in case of partnership, that designated partner. In case of company, it is managing director, whole-time director, on any other case. In case of trust, it is board of trustees. In case of association, it's members. They are, in case of HUF, it is Karta. They are required to take the Aadhaar authentication. Under section 25 subsection 6D, it has given a list who are not required to go for Aadhaar authentication. In that there are the departments, government departments, they are not required to take the that Aadhaar authentication. For them, Aadhaar authentication is not required. PSU, Aadhaar authentication is not required. And foreign citizen, for them Aadhaar authentication is not required. And any local authority, for them Aadhaar authentication is not required. Like this, there are some list in which it is given that who are not required to go for Aadhaar authentication. That is given in section number 25 subsection 6D. Later, section number 25 subsection 8 talks about suo motu registration, in which a person who is liable under section 22 or 24 who has not applied for the registration, then the proper officer on his own motion, he will apply for registration and he will send the notice to the taxpayer, the taxable person. Later, on receipt of this notice, the taxable person has two options. Option number 1, to apply for registration. If he applies for registration, case is closed. If he doesn't apply for the registration, then he has to go for appeal. Within 90 days, he has to go for appeal. In case of appeal, there can be two circumstances or two results. Number 1, if he wins the case, then case is closed. That means if he is not required to take the registration, case will get closed. If taxpayer loses the case, in that case, within 30 days from the date of receipt of that order, he has to apply for registration and he has to pay the penalty, interest, everything. This is given in section number 25 subsection 8. Section number 25 subsection 9, which talks about UIN holders. So the UIN holders, they will be given a separate registration for application for applying for the refund purpose. This is given in section number 25 subsection 9. These are the important sections that we discussed, subsections that we discussed in section number 25, and there are some rules also. Section number 25 we have discussed about rule number 8, rule number 9. Rule number 8 is talking about you have to apply for registration in GST REG 01. In GST REG 01, there are two parts, part A and part B. Part A is talking about part A, which asks you about you are which kind of person you are, from which state, from which district, and what is your mobile number, what is your email ID. Once you give the submit, you will receive OTP to the Aadhaar connected mobile number and Aadhaar connected email ID. So you will get the OTP. Once you get the OTP, you have to put the OTP and you have to give the submit. The moment you give the submit, now you receive one TRN, temporary reference number. On the basis of that temporary reference number, you have to log in again. Later you have to fill up the other part B. You have to fill up the part B. Part B mein there are 10 tabs. 10 tabs talking about the business, the principal place of business, additional place of business, the goods that you sell, and the authorized representatives, and any other Aadhaar authentication like this. There are 10 tabs which is given in part B that you have to fill it up. Finally, Aadhaar authentication has to be opted. If you don't opt for Aadhaar authentication, then within next 30 days from the date of submission of the application, within next 30 days, there will be site verification which is mandatory. If you opt for Aadhaar authentication, then you will receive one link to your email ID, registered email ID. That link is valid for 15 days. If you don't do anything with that link, in the sense you have to click on that link and later you have to do the Aadhaar authentication. If process is not complete, then after 15th day, the application is considered to be submitted, and from that date, from expiry of 15th day, from that date within 30 days, site verification will be conducted. If you finish the process within 15 days of link, within 15 days of generation of the link, then the date of doing the Aadhaar authentication will be considered as the application. So the submission of the application, from that date within 7 working days, you will get the registration certificate or a notice asking for the CID, clarification, information and documents. So on receipt of that notice, you have to provide clarification, information and documents which is asked by them within 7 working days. So if a taxpayer is not giving CID within 7 working days, then the application shall stand to be rejected. So if the taxpayer gives his reply within 7 working days, and within next 7 working days from the date of reply, the application will be rejected or it will be granted. The council will give you the registration within 7 working days. So once you get the registration, in rule number 10 says that you will get 15 digits GST number, which consists of first 2 letters or code, state code, and next 10 letters, 10 digits are your PAN, and other 3 digits may, one is number of registration in the state, and the second one is checksum number, and the next one is algorithm calculated sum numbers that will be provided to you. So there are 15 characters in your GST registration, which is given in rule number 10. Rule number 10A is talking about once you apply for the registration, within next 45 days or first return, whichever is earlier, within that date you have to submit your bank account number. Or if you fail to give the bank account number within that stipulated time, then the registration will stand to be cancelled as per section number 29, which we have discussed in section number 29. This is about section number 25 में rule number 10A. Later we discussed about some other rules also. It is mandatory that you have to put your GST number on the board and all the bills which are produced by the taxpayer to any of his customers or stakeholders. That is given in rule number 18. So these were some of the important rules which are given in section number 25. Later we discussed about section number 26. What is section number 26? It is not so important one. Section number 26 states that if application is submitted in SGST, it is considered that application is given in CGST, to CGST also. If registration is granted in SGST, that is deemed to be granted in CGST. If application is rejected in SGST, then it is deemed to be rejected in CGST. So this is given in section number 26. Lastly, section number 27. Section number 27 is special provisions for CTP and NRTP. Section number 27 subsection 1 says that CTP and NRTP will get the certificate of registration, which will be valid for 90 days or days applied. Days applied by the CTP or NRTP or 90 days, whichever is earlier. For that, certificate of registration will be given. Section number 27 subsection 2 says that while applying for the registration, the applicant shall make the advance payment. Without advance payment, registration certificate will not be granted. Only on deposit of the amount, registrations TRN will be given to the registered person, the person who is asking for CTP and NRTP registration. If the CTP and NRTP wants the extension, they can ask for extension to the extent of 90 days or days asked in the application, whichever is less. For that, they will get the registration extension. Even in case of extension, you have to pay the advance amount. Advance deposit is required even in case of extension. This is given for the purpose of extension. And lastly, section number 27 subsection 3 says that amount deposited at the time of application shall be credited to the electronic cash ledger. Of whom? Electronic cash ledger of CTP or NRTP. So this is about some important point which was there in section number 27, which is related to CTP and NRTP. So that's all for today, this revision. People, we will discuss about section number 28, 29, 30 in next revision classes. Until then, keep studying, keep growing. Thank you everyone. We'll meet in next video.